Okay, so how the session's going to run, it's going to be two parts. The first part is all dealing with phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, and phonics, and then the second half will be about the close reading component that's been brought in by the Common Core. It's really light stuff, but just so you kind of know, like when I taught 4th grade, and then I went all the way down to 1st grade, and I honestly didn't know the difference between these three things. I had to reteach to myself before I can let the kids know, before I knew how to instruct the kids on these things. So I'm just going to do like a brief overview of the 3 different areas underneath the phonological kind of balloon. So it starts out with phonological awareness, and this is like our broad understanding of sounds and how sounds are made. Like we hear this, that's phonological awareness. This includes what we hear in terms of rhyming of words, syllabication of words, and also alliteration, like, you know, Peter Piper picked up, all that stuff that we hear. That's all under this whole balloon of phonological awareness. Then you break it down even further by going into phonemic awareness. So this is the smallest unit of sounds, the most defined isolation of phonemes, the sounds that letters make. So there's 26 letters, I think there's 44 sounds in our English language, so it's kind of breaking those down. And we do activities with our kids. This is how they put the sounds together. They make the blends, then they go into the actual phonics, which we'll get into later. So I wanted to kind of talk about some different things you can do with your kids that help bring them to mastery and awareness in this area. So like the first part is working with your kids and identifying beginning sounds, middle sounds, and ending sounds. This is all before paper is even involved. So these are quick activities you do with your kids. I say dog, what's the first sound that you hear? What's the beginning sound? What's the middle sound? What's the end sound? This is just you saying these things to your kids. You can do this in line at the bathroom. You can do this whenever. So you can kind of put this in wherever you can fit it. So beginning, middle, end. The second part is segmenting and counting phonemes. And this is also very verbal. You want them to be able to even do this with their eyes closed. So usually in the kindergarten area, we do a one-to-one correspondence. You do the words like cat, and you say count the sounds in cat, at. So it's a one-to-one. There's 3 letters, and there's 3 sounds in cat. When we go on to 1st grade and 2nd grade, we build into more concepts of like a 3-to-5 ratio. If you say sheep and you count the sounds in sheep, sheep. That's 3, but there's 5 letters, so that's a 3-to-5 correspondence. So you kind of build those up. Again, quick activities you can do whenever, morning meeting, but just do these every day, these types of activities, and they build their phonemic awareness. I put teacher bubblegum. This is kind of what I used to tell my kids. I don't do it too much in 2nd grade, but in terms of I'm going to take this word and I want to stretch it out like bubblegum, you're going to hear me stretch it out, and then you say it when I clap my hands. So I put my bubblegum back together. Just like silly putty. I don't know if you know silly putty, how it stretches out. And then if you pull it really fast, it just breaks. So I used to do that too. If I had like a big, like the super silly putty, so a big one. So you'll stretch it out. This sheep. What's the word? Sheep. And they all say it fluently and quickly. And then you have the hardest area for our kids to master, and that's the manipulation of sound. So that's when you say, I'm going to say the word mate. If I change the in mate to a what's the word? Rate. And then changing the ending sounds and like manipulation, changing the middle. If I change, the word is dog. If I change op in dog to it, what's the word? Dig. So they have those sort of manipulation practice. So that's what you really want to spend most of your time on. They'll master these things. These things are very easy, the whole blending and putting back together. This is where you want to spend your most time because it forces them to really have to visualize what the word, hear it, visualize it, and also say it. So it involves everything. Okay, any questions? So that's phonemic. See, it's all broken up. In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to teach kids how to read. I just need to know the sounds. I'm going to teach them the sounds. When you get the digraphs, I'm going to teach them the digraphs. I didn't know that it was broken up into these different areas, and they build on each other. So it's like it was all new. I had to teach myself all of this all over again. So then we get to phonics. We use these terms interchangeably, but they're way different. So phonics is when we put everything we know that we've learned to practice in print, where they learn how to write actual sounds that they hear or that they blend to themselves. And this is where the whole group sort of phonics routines and practice come into play. So you do things with the sound spellings like the board blending routines, which I'm going to show a quick video of me doing it with my second grade class this year. You build in fluency checks. That means at the end of your blending routine on the board, you do a quick fluency check so they say it fluently. They don't just end it in the slow blending process. And then you have decodable readers and things like that to where they can see the sound spelling that you're working on in practice in an actual text. I usually manipulate that a little bit and have them go in and circle all the words in the decodable reader that has that sound spelling in it, and then they read it, so they practice those sound spellings in an actual book, in actual text. Okay? So now I'm just going to go in, a little meaning behind it. This is what, this helped a lot in my class, turn on a lot of light bulbs. Kids, you'll be surprised that they don't know why they're reading. Like, I asked my kids, why do we learn how to read? Why do you want to learn how to read? They said, I want to know the words. I want to know how to blend, because they heard me say something about blending. They have absolutely no idea why we read. So for me, when I shared that with them, they were more invested in the whole process of becoming a master reader, a fluent reader. So you'll be surprised if you just share with them the experience of being an adult reader. Like, what do? We have book clubs. We read a book, and then we go and tell our girlfriends and our boyfriends and our friends all about what we read, and we have these deep conversations, and they're fun and exciting. So they're like, oh, that's what you do with reading when you're an adult? You read the newspaper, and then you learn about everything happening in the world. You're up on current events and everything like that. So when you do that, light bulbs go on, and then they're really into this process. And then, on top of that, I used my smoothie analogy, and if I've talked to you about phonics, you probably already know this, but I'm going to say it again, because putting this visual with phonics and phonemic awareness for the kids, it changed their whole lives. So this is the idea that I share with my students. When we learn how to read, you learn what the letters are, you learn what the sounds the letters make, all good. Those are like your little pieces of fruit that you want to eventually make a smoothie with. So you have your strawberries and you have your bananas, everything. You have all these bits and pieces. But then you get to text where you have to now put all these bits and pieces into your brain, blend them together, and then when you come out, you have this nice, smooth word that you can say fluently and you know what it means. So it's this process of taking pieces, blending it up, saying it real smooth, that gets kids excited, and they say, oh, I can do that. I know the words. I just have to blend it, and then now I have to say it. They know the process, and then they're invested in that process. Any questions? This works every time. I usually just draw it really quick on the Promethean board, like at the beginning of the year, and then I just kind of refer to it as I go. Remember, smoothie. And I also say, you don't want a lumpy smoothie. That's like reading like a robot. That's a lumpy smoothie. Who drinks lumpy smoothies? You always want to go through the whole process, blend it through, chunk it together, figure out what you know, and say it real smooth. So that's like a really cute idea that they really relate to. So this is the part where I kind of want to talk about how you can maintain consistent phonics routines in your classroom. Phonics takes less than 10 minutes. In your mind, you're thinking, like, I should spend all this time going over phonics. Phonics is a 10-minute thing you do either at the beginning or at the end of your lesson, at some point in your day. It doesn't even have to be attached to your reading block. Just 10 little minute block to go through this quick blending routine on a single sound spelling, and then that's it, and then you move on. And that little bit every day is all you need. So when you notice I'm going to play my video, you'll notice in my routine that I introduce the concept that we're going to be working on. I show them the different sound spellings. It's going to be long I. The different sound spellings they work through. I do a blending routine to where I've taught my kids that when I point to the letter that I just wrote, that is when I want them to all say it together. So you'll notice I print. You won't see the letters that I write because the Promethean board is really bright, but you'll hear the kids say it, so you'll know what I'm blending. But you'll see the process of me pointing in the words, they say it. When I'm done with the spelling, I do a swoop under. That's the blend the blend, visual that they do. So they blend the word nice and slow. Sometimes I trick it and I do it really slow. Sometimes I do it a little bit faster just to make sure they're with me. And then my fluency check is a quick swipe across, and that's when I want the whole class to say it nice, strong, fast, fluently. So you'll notice that whole process. With kindergarten, it's a bit easier because you have the more simple CBC words. When you get into first grade, you start introducing your digraphs and your blends. I write those all at one time because I want them to identify that one single point as one blend. So if I'm doing the bull, I'll write that out. I won't do the b and the ul separate. You write the whole blend that you're working on, point to, and they'll say that together. So you do some chunking with this with the process too. Then after that, you'll notice that I go into some comprehension connections and some tense and context based on the words that I do. So I'll put maybe 15 words up there. We'll blend about 15 words. They're all up there. Then I'll manipulate those words a bit further, ask them like, what's a verb that you see? If I want to put an ending, I want to change the tense to mean past tense, what can I put on this word? So you'll see those sorts of things just so they can build some context around the words that they just learned how to blend. So when they see those words in their text, and if you're using journeys and you're pulling those words straight from the text, those words are going to come up again in their decodable reader, in their student story for the week. So they'll build context there too. And then again, no more than 10 minutes. I'm very serious about that. Okay. And we're just going to watch a short person so you can see how quick. And this is about 8 minutes that it takes to go through this process. The thing about long vowels is that when you're doing a blending process, usually they'll say the short vowel, and that's okay. Let them go ahead and blend it with the short vowel so they can hear that they need to make that self-correction. And you'll see that I'll blend it again and they'll change it on their own. They're like, oh, you changed it because you knew that didn't suit.
No, let's figure it out. Blend. Right, could have been
6 minutes in, so you can cover a whole lot of content with phonics in a very short amount of time. So that's just what I wanted to show you for how the blending routine works. Okay, so now just some resource sharing, some fun things that I found over the years. I have a YouTube playlist that has many different phonics videos in it. They're quick. Last year, yeah, right. So, and Electric Company has a ton of them, and the kids love them. So every day, as soon as they walk in during breakfast, whole playlist is playing. Stop for a minute, listen to the announcements, keep it going. So they know these by heart, and that really helped them because when I go back and I go back and refer to it in a phonics lesson, they're singing the song, they know the sounds already. So it's a great way to connect, and it's a fun way to kind of get the day started as well. If you walk by my room, you probably hear it playing all the time. There's a new show. It's a BBC show. It's called Alpha Blocks, and it's super cute. And first grade, kindergarten, even second grade, they'll like it too. But throughout the whole show, they manipulate the sounds through the whole show.
It's getting heavier.
And when they connect with each other, they say that sound throughout the whole episode. So their dialogue is all dealing with that. And they jump into words. It's really, really cute. And they have a bunch of them online as well. They're called the Alpha Blocks. The other thing is, and this is the program that we used 3 years ago, it's Imagine It. If you remember Imagine It. It was so good. It's so good. It's so much better. And I go back to say it because with Imagine It, they gave you the sound spelling cards, and this is what you would post up. But you would post them backwards, and it would just have the letters on there, and you have all the sound spelling cards up. That was your alphabet word line, your word wall would kind of be there. And as you introduce a sound, you made it really hype. You went over to it. Today we're going to learn a new sound. And you flip that card over with the sound spellings that now has a picture. it has a little story that goes with the picture, so they remember what the sound is and all the spellings are there. So by the end of the year, everything's turned over and they know, but they got introduced to it in a really fun way. We still have these down in the basement. So if you having some trouble like getting kids to remember certain sounds, we can go and pull them. I kept this up here, which is all of them on like a ring, just in case I want to go and refer to it, and just kind of review different sounds. Another great thing is this lady kind of does what I used to do. She has the whole cards, but I used to take the small cards and build words and just tape them up and have maybe like 5 words on the board, but they're just in spelling cards. And they had to figure out what word that I was trying to make with those spelling cards. Because they'll take these different spellings for these different sounds, and they have to figure out what spelling to actually write the word correctly. Mm-hmm. She does this,
How are you doing today?
She does this whole group as an activity.
And what does this green mean? Short vowel. Last sound in shack. Which one's green? Oh, good. You remembered. CK is.
And with the sound spelling cards, it's like a green, and then it's like a green little dot on there, so they know what spelling would go with that vowel.
This one is going to be the hardest of all. Ready? Badge. Miss Russo's wearing a badge because you need to know her name. What's the word, guys? Badge. How many sounds in badge? How many sounds? 3. So how many cards are we checking? Good. 3 sounds, 3 cards. Are you ready? First sound in badge.
That's good for building that phonemic awareness right there.
Spell. Vowel sound in badge. Spell. A. Now, this is tricky because in English there are a lot of spellings for the sound j, right? Okay, last sound in badge is, looking for the green, okay? What's the last sound in badge? Which one's the green on the card? D-G-E is the match. That's an English rule. D-G-E is always after short vowels. You don't have to memorize. It's a fact. Okay?
Yeah, I learned that from her. She's really good.
Right. Let's do a
so that's just,
what we done.
and I can share the link so if you wanted to watch that whole activity there. The other thing is, like, I do a lot of stamping activities, and if you know about kinetic sand, which is awesome, because you don't have to get messy with, like, actual ink stamps, but if you just give kids, like, a little portion of this, and they just lay it flat, you can stamp into this, and there's no mess. And they can just use the actual ink stamps. So you give the kids a word, you give kids sounds, individual phonemes, and they have to listen and they pick the stamp and stamp it out and try to build the word that you say just from hearing it. I'm gonna skip that real quick. Words Their Way. I've talked to a few of you about Words Their Way. I used it all last year for Champion Prep. I gave kids a primary spelling inventory, which is really great because it really starts hitting your kids exactly where they are in terms of phonemic awareness. I have the program and I can share it with you. Let me just show you quickly. I'll come back to that. So Words Their Way is word and picture sorts, and it's all differentiated based on whatever group they end up in after you do a quick like spelling test inventory. Okay. They can be used as an independent center activity. My kids do this for their center. When their group goes to center, they do this first, and then they can go do whatever Rainbow Write or anything else I have planned. So each day they're working with their Words Their Way sorts. And then they just have an envelope in their desk. Like, so I'll put on the board if I want them just to cut and practice that day. They'll just, at the end of that day, put it in their envelope. And then the next day it might be a practice and paste it. The next day might be to do their practice page that's on the back of the board. And I just photocopy it. So they have their pack for the week and they just rip off the next one if it's time to go to the next sort. So if you want to talk to me more about how that could work in your class, I'll be more than happy to do that. But it made my kids grow leaps and bounds because they were practicing just where they at. I didn't start the whole class at beginning sounds when I have some kids that are working on digraphs and blends. So you kind of just put the kids where they are. I have an automatic Excel spreadsheet that you can put your kids' data in based on their spelling list, and it'll create the groups for you. It's actually really amazing. It'll put the groups in their Words Their Way, and I can give that to you as well. This is just how, like, they tell you exactly what words for the primary spelling list you use. You say the word, say the sentence, say the word. Just have them do it. Tell them that they might not know all of the words, but just to try their best so you can see where they are in terms of their phonemic awareness. That's just a sample of like the teacher page. And this is an example of what you do for each kid. So like the first word was fan, and based on what they did, even if it's not in the right order, you still check it off. Like if they put the as the beginning sound, they put the N as the ending sound. If they put an I, then you just wouldn't check that off. And you go through each word, and once they got 2 wrong, then that's where you know they fall in terms of their phonemic awareness. They're struggling with short vowels, they're struggling with long vowels, but you can see exactly where each kid is. And like I said, I have an Excel sheet that you just type this in, and then it'll automatically group your kids at the end, and you'll have all your kids in one. It's really great data to share with parents, and if you do it at the beginning, or if you start now and then do another one at the end of the year, you'll see how much they've grown, and it's really great data to share with parents. Especially parents who ask you, like, what's some stuff I can do at home? And you're like, okay, I'm going to give you stuff on all the long vowels in the world to do at home, because that's where they are, and that's what they need to work on. It's really great. Okay. So that's all phonics stuff. Questions? Strategy that's kind of been brought on by the Common Core. So close reading, I have some stuff up, but I also have it in here. So it's the intentional reading and rereading of a complex text multiple times to gain a deep understanding of content. And this does a few things to the kids. But this is kind of like why we should add close reading. It's kind of like we don't have a choice now because it's kind of just there with the Anchor Standard 10, and kind of how we want students to be challenged and be comfortable being challenged. And also going back and referring and finding evidence and backing up what they think. Not just making stuff up. We have a lot of kids that love to make stuff up and embellish the story, but now it's like you got to anchor it down with why do you might think that, and that's all great, but why? Go back and find that evidence in the text to kind of back up what you're saying, and then you take it to the next step of putting it in writing. So this is kind of how we want to prepare the students when they do PARC and things like that. They're going to have to respond to text in meaningful ways. Okay, so these are the benefits that some of these I came up with. Some of these are like in different articles and things that I've read. We went over this kind of like in the math PD we did last week about that productive struggle that you kind of want kids to kind of start working through. Guided reading of the past, and even like last year, the year before, you give kids text that they're comfortable with. It's on their F&P reading level. It's one level behind that, so they can independently read it. You have these independent reading levels. You have their guided reading levels. So close reading takes that and pushes it to the limit. This is when you're giving kids text 1 or 2 grade levels ahead of where they actually are on purpose. So with that, students can expect to struggle and persevere. This is a conversation you have with your kids. This is going to be hard, but don't be scared of things being difficult and hard. I'm going to teach you how you can work through things like this. So then the students also can expect support from the teacher and peers. They know they know what to expect. They know they're going to get a hard piece. They also know that their teacher is going to be there to help them through the process of close reading, which means they're going to be reading it a few times. The students have time to respond to scaffolded critical thinking questions with peers. There's a point in time in the close reading process that you want to have multiple opportunities for kids to talk to each other about what they're reading. Just so they can build that dialogue. This also starts putting ideas into their head about what they possibly can write when they're going to be asked to write about what they read. They gain confidence in responding to text in a meaningful way, and then like I said, they are exposed finally to text that is harder, so they kind of know what to expect. And if you put it in language like this is some 3rd grade, this is some 2nd grade text I'm giving you, it kind of gets them excited because they're like, ooh, I'm kind of getting this little preview into the next grade. So that's a little like underlying motivation that you can give your students, because you'll be able to do this flying colors next year. So let's practice this now. You can kind of introduce it to them in that way. Okay, so the close reading procedure. There are a few things that you're going to have to do ahead of time to kind of prepare yourself so you're kind of moving through the process pretty quickly. Close reads in here probably last like 20 minutes if I'm doing it whole group, and the same if I'm doing it in small group for that day. So it's still a very quick process. So the advanced preparations, you would want to prepare your questions in advance that you want them to turn and talk about. And you're going to use the Bloom section. Let me hand this out now, because I found this and it's really well. Bloom has changed his ways so many times, but I stick with this one, and I actually like have it posted up here, so like as I'm teaching I can kind of like pick a question and I can kind of work through this. So this is kind of like what we're going to be referring to in terms of the questioning that we use, and I like it because usually Bloom, they have like just those like keywords that hit on these, but this handout actually, I missed you? This handout actually gives you like some question like starters. You just literally fill in the blanks and you're going to be at that point. I'm just going to give you a whole bunch of these guys. This is like one of my like gold finds that like I use all the time. And I have a bunch of extra copies. So this is kind of what I use to plan from. So those few questions that I want to work through, I write all those. I use this to pull from. And the next thing is like intentionally pairing students in your group to do your turn and talk. A lot of times they're just on the carpet. You say turn to your partner and talk about this. But you'll be surprised how much more beneficial it is if you intentionally pair them. So if you've been in my class, you'll see in a very short clip when I show you this. I do the peanut butter and jelly partners, but it's intentional. A peanut butter is a student that is higher, more comfortable sharing right away on the higher level thinkings. My jellies, they might be timid. My shy kids, they might struggle with the higher order thinking. So I pair them intentionally. I'll ask jellies to share with peanut butter if it's one of those knowledge questions sort of on the lower end, just to kind of get their feet wet. I'll ask my peanut butters to share with jelly for the higher, really tough questions, then ask jelly to respond. So teaching the students in advance what it looks like to turn and talk, how their body should look, how their voice should sound, how they should stay on topic and answer the question that I have sent to them, how you're going to send them off to start talking, how you're going to get their attention back when you want them to stop talking. All those things you talk about and you teach them in advance. So when it comes to this, it's a very quick process. Question, talk, back to me, moving on.
And we try to decide what genre our story is. What I want you to do is I want Jelly to tell Peanut Butter what you believe the genre of our story is. We have fantasy fiction, realistic fiction, and we have non-fiction. Okay? What the genre of this story is. Jelly, tell Peanut Butter. Teach.
Okay.
Mayana, share with us what your partner shared with you. Wow, okay, so one is it's realistic because a boy could really hit, hold a baseball bat and hit a baseball. That's what our cover illustration shows.
In terms of making sure they're practicing actual listening skills,
you agree with Mayana?
in my class, they never share what they say. I'll call on someone, I always expect them to share what their partner just told them. So it's like London shares that, so they always have to be listening to what their partner said, because I might call on them to share
Something
out.
on the cover that could never happen, ever. Our bat is not talking. Our bat does not have wings. Our boy is not flying. So it is not fantasy fiction. And we also know it's not nonfiction. Why do we know it's not nonfiction? Right, the picture does not look like it's taken with the camera. And because the title is Luke Goes to Bat, Peanut Butter, tell Jelly, if the title is Luke Goes to Bat, why would this not be a nonfiction story? Teach.
Okay.
That's something that's real heavy for the jelly to answer in terms of taking a title and kind of analyzing that title to figure out why that would not be
next round, just do peanut
Yeah,
butter
it's
chips.
all like, it's, you know, I kind of get a feel for it, and especially if I get a certain response, and I don't know what Jen said. I think if I get a certain response and like a kid responds, and then I might go back to another group if I heard them say something similar. So like as you're walking around, you're like really surveying the room and listening in on those responses. They also stay on task if they know you are actively listening. So you can't just send them out and then like I'm just gonna go over here and work on something. If they know I'm gonna sit down and at any time like I'm gonna come in and listen in on this conversation, then they always are on point and they always stay on topic. The other thing is teaching them how you want them to speak and answer a question is very important, especially when we get into the close reading portions where they have to respond to a question. When they say these things, they get in the habit of, I agree with because, on this page because, it makes a world of a difference. Because they're so much, why do I keep hitting this? Because they're so much more comfortable with saying it. Okay, so the habits that you want to teach your kids before you start doing an actual close read with them is flipping the question. And I learned a quick activity in teaching them how to flip questions, or the importance of flipping a question and starting with a complete sentence. Ask me a question very quietly, just about me. It can be like a what is or anything. Oh, okay. Kale. So I told you kale, and many students, when you ask them a question or they see a question, kale. You have no idea what the question is that she asked me. It could have been, what is the vegetable I hate? What is my favorite vegetable? What is the one thing that I must put in a smoothie first? Like, you don't know what it is. So doing that with your kids, they're like, oh, like they get it. You can say it to them a million times. Start with a complete sentence. Do this. Do that with your kids, and then they will understand why. You want to be able to read a response and know the question that was asked. My favorite vegetable is kale. You knew what she asked me just by that. So that's like a quick way to kind of connect that with them. Just getting in the habit of taking that portion of the question and starting out their response. You'll notice in the close read, I have them do that first. So they'll read the question, they'll start out their response, then they'll go find the evidence in the text, underline it, and then finish their sentence. So it's like, make it automatic for them. Annotating the evidence, like I said, being able to just underline just the part that they need, not go and find the evidence. Underline the whole thing. The whole thing was about Martin Luther King Jr. No, I want to know specifically what he did at this point or at this year, in this year. So just teaching them how to just underline the evidence that they need. And then, like you said, how to respond. Be critical of your students. Like, for me, it's going around, they're using a capital letter in the middle of the word. Fix that. So it's like being real critical and having them fix those things now means it's practice for them later. Don't let it fly like, oh, they got the right answer. No, that needs to be a capital letter at the beginning, and you need to put a period at the end. So it's like, be critical of your students. Make sure they fix those things now. And then, like I said, how to respond to those text-dependent questions with starters. Okay, so we're kind of short on time a little bit, so we're gonna speed it up. It was really dark. Okay, so what I want to do is give you a close read. This is one thing that's not in the packs that I'm going to give you, the close reading packs. So the first read, so we read the text 3 times. The first read is like the cold read. This is the one where they're going to struggle. They're going to expect to struggle. You give them the text, okay? So I'm just going to give you a text on Martin Luther King Jr. I do not like that they called him MLK throughout this text. Don't worry about that. It really irritated me. I actually told my kids, I'm like, they should use his full name the entire time. So I give this to them, and you want them to have the text separate so they can have it separate from the questions that you give them. Okay, so first read. So you give them the text, and they read with pencil in hand. Oh, sorry. They read with pencil in hand. Any words that they struggle with, they don't know what it means, they really struggled sounding it out, okay? They circle those words now. So they read with pencil in hand. You do not help them. So this is not the time you see somebody over here struggling and then you go and you start helping them blend words together. Let them struggle. It'll be okay. You can give them like support and say it'll be fine. You can tell them that they need to blend it, but don't do anything for them, okay? And yeah, so that's it. So like they do the first read. The second read. This is when the teacher reads the piece out loud, reads the text out loud to the students. This is still for K. Like you can do this. I'm going to give you a lot of examples and a lot of packs that you can use, especially with your high kids, but your whole group can do this. So your teacher reads it out loud, okay? What I like to do is while they're circling and reading, I still survey the room. So I have some words that I'm planning on covering, some words that I know that they all probably don't know the meaning of. Those are words that I plan for. As I'm walking around, I'm noting words that I didn't plan for. I mention those words out loud before I do the second read. So if somebody might have said divided, and I didn't know, I didn't have that in my plan to go over those words, I'll mention to the class, oh, a lot of you, a trend is, a lot of you circled the word divided. You mentioned that out. So you go over the words that they did not know. Specifically, you may need to go over words that were more difficult. And this is where context comes into play. This is where context comes into play. So context, putting words into context, you pass them down. And you're looking on this vocabulary sheet here. The packs that I'm going to share with and give you today, they're all like this, where they have the text and then they have like a vocabulary and then a questioning page. So we work with the vocabulary. This is kind of like your plan on how you're going to introduce those words that they don't know. Putting words into context is a first grade standard. Kindergarten-esque standard, but definitely a second grade standard. So they have to be able to, any more? They need to be able to go to the sentence, underline words, context clues that can help them figure out what that word may mean. Okay, if you don't have this, you're going back to the text and you're picking out context clues. You have to teach kids how to figure this out. This helps them deal with that struggle, because they might get to a word and now they'll get in the habit of, well, let me try to figure out what this word means. Okay, if it's yellow and it's long and it's a fruit, this word might be banana, it might mean this. So like they need to get through that process, okay? So I go through this with the kids so that at this point they all know what all words mean in the text. Then I read through it, they follow along. One tip that I use for the kids who don't care to follow along is that one, they're using their tracker, and I walk around the room. If I tap you on your shoulder, I expect you to read that next word. If you are not ready, you are not prepared, there are consequences for those people. So they know, they're walking around, they know I'm walking, so they're all tracking, they're all following along. They listen to me. So, second read, they now can read through it fluently. They've heard me read through it fluently. They're almost experts. So the whole point of close reading is to become an expert. So your this time, because they know the text, now they're able to do those turn-in talks. So no writing involved yet, but at this point, after we do the second read and all vocabulary has been gone over, this is when I do those turn-in talks. And I keep it in those first 3 areas of the critical thinking model. So I don't get too heavy with it. It's just some recall questions, some what year did Martin Luther King Jr. give his speech, peanut butter tell jelly. They go back to the text. And I have them label the paragraphs. It sounds heavy, but that gets them in the habit of saying on page or in paragraph 2 it says that Martin Luther King gave this speech in it gets them in the process of responding in that way. But easy level questions, 1, 2, 3 application, comprehension, knowledge questions that they can turn and talk about. So at this point they're really close to being an expert. Only thing left to do is read it together fluently for your third read and then answer some questions in writing. Okay? Good so far?
When you do the third read, are you reading along with them?
Yep. So third read, This is when students show mastery of the text by responding in writing. You start that out by doing a whole class read again, but they're talking this time. They're reading along with you. Okay? And I do the same thing. I'll stop reading altogether and I'll listen in on a couple kids. They know if I get real close, I'm listening for their fluency. I'm listening for how smooth they're reading like a smoothie, little things like that. So at this point, if you turn that paper over, the packs that you'll get today, they'll come with questions just like this. This is where we practice that flip the question, start your response out, go back to the text. So I have them have it side by side. They have their text and they have their questions side by side. They stop, they go back, they underline where they found the evidence, then they take that and put it in their response. So then they answer these questions in complete sentences. Okay? And here's also a chance for you to do some turn and talks, because at this point they know all about Martin Luther King Jr. They know all about him because they read a text 3 times and they've answered questions. They've turned and talked about it. They know this like the back of their hand. So you can say, you're pretty much experts. This is one misconception that I have found. So the kid who struggled and shut down initially, or the kid who thinks he's too good to circle some words on the page and say he doesn't know anything. Having a real honest conversation with the students, like you are doing yourself a disservice, because what's going to happen is we're all going to get to read number 3, we're going to answer the questions, we're going to know what all the words mean, and you will not be an expert. But we all work to be experts. So it's something about being honest, having that conversation about honesty. I'm here to help you. That's my job. That's the only thing I'm here for. I woke up today, this is my only job, is to come to work and help you. So be honest with me and help me know what you need help with. That eliminated that in my class when I started doing these close reading process, because I had some kids. And if you go to them, oh, segregation, you know that word, you didn't circle it. What's segregation mean? Circle the word. And then you just move on. So then you kind of like keep it light, but like you'll have those kids and just kind of address it then, so it doesn't blow up in your face. Okay, so after answering questions like this, journal entries at this point, making some connections to themselves, to the text, to another text, to the world. This is a great time to do that because they're really comfortable with what they have. They can now think about themselves and add another layer onto it. So journal entries are also a great way to input those right here. Okay, so the last part is the resource sharing that I have. For K1, a good idea before you start your very first close read to introduce why you close read with your students is to do some sort of snack activity with them. I like Oreos. Oreos are good. So if you have Oreos, you tell your students, I'm going to give you an Oreo. And when you get that Oreo, don't wait. Eat it. Eat it right when you get it. So you go, and they love it because you're not waiting on anybody. You're not waiting for everybody to get their paper towels. No. As soon as you get this Oreo, eat your Oreo. So they all getting it. They're passing it out, eating it. They just devour the Oreo. Put an anchor chart up here of observations. What did you eat? You will get Oreo. You will get cookie. That's about it. Say, okay, this time you will wait. And I want you to think about all of your senses while you eat this cookie. I want you to eat it slowly. I want you to enjoy the cookie. Pass out the cookie. Everybody waits. Everybody eats. Do the observation chart again. Because then you get crunchy. You get black. You get a white inside. You get a smooth, creamy, sweet inside. You get all these new things when you take the time to slowly go back and really read it with the intention of enjoying it. So the kids kind of put in. So now think about reading. We're going to read some text, and it might be hard, but we're going to go back and we're going to read it slowly. I'm going to help you, and we'll get so much more out of it than when we first read. The first time I did one of these activities, and I actually introduced it with the author of these sort of close reading strategies. I'm going to give you her pack. They did the close read, and then we did the second read, and I'm like, how many of you are experts on this right now? No hands. Could you tell me everything about a snowflake right now? No, not really. I'm a little shaky. That third read, once they did the turn and talks and everything, how many of you experts on snowflakes? They all have 6 sides. They can tell me all of these things about it. From the first read, could we do that? No. Now can you? Yes. So it kind of just builds that comfort.